Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Deborah D. Jenkins, and I am your host for Black Talk Platform, where we talk about everything and anything that concerns the uplift of the Black community that is happening that harms the Black community, any and everything for the Black community, by the Black community, about the Black community. And this evening, I am so excited. You notice I say that all the time. I am so excited on repeat because I really am. I listen, I pay attention, and I watch to see who is doing what in our communities. And when I find really good people doing really good things in our communities, I will reach out to them. And often to my surprise, because if I've noticed their good deeds, I know that others have too. But often to my surprise, my great surprise, they are willing to come on Black Talk platform and talk about their great work. And when they tell me yes, I am happy to have them come on that I might be able to amplify them and the work that they are doing. And this evening, I am so happy to have a young leader, community leader, right out of Brooklyn, New York, here with me tonight. And before I bring her on board, let me tell you a little bit about her. I don't want to be shy. I want to amplify all the good work she's been doing for nearly 2 decades in this area of youth development. And her name is Katrena Perou. And you know me in pronunciation. If I've mispronounced her name, I will definitely give her an opportunity to correct me. She is, and I want to stress this, she is the founding executive director of Inspiring Minds New York City, which is and she is a collective impact strategist. I've never seen that before, but I will be asking her about that because I actually like that. Who has created community engagement models across several districts in New York City since 2003. Katrena has mastered finding and leveraging the assets in her partner communities by creating program models and events that unite multiple stakeholders around shared goals in partnership with their youth. One of the main reasons I asked her to come on was because I wanted to celebrate her good work. I wanted to do it in March, but you notice if you've been following Black Talk platform, I've been celebrating a whole lot of wonderful Black women from all across the country for the month of March. And this being Black Women's Health Month, I thought it was great that she accepted my offer to come on. So we can talk a little bit more about what she does, but I would like to introduce to some and present to others Miss Katrena Perou. Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And welcome to Black Talk platform. Miss Perou, am I saying your name correctly?
Well, the last name is pronounced Peru, like the country.
See,
So
I
you
knew I
almost had it, but it's
almost
okay.
had it. Okay, thank you, Peru, and that's easy enough to remember. Listen, I'm so happy you are here. There is a crisis within the Black community and also brown communities because being in New York, we service Black and brown children all the time in this work that we do. And we're particularly focusing on the work that you do. This is not about we, this is about you. And I think that you have such an interesting model that we can begin to, across the country, duplicate it, replicate it in small bites until we are helping our young people to avoid crime and other harms that may come to them. And so I want to jump right into it. Tell me what it means to be a collective impact strategist. I think I can pick up on context clues, but in your words, what is a collective impact strategist?
Okay, so collective impact is kind of like the definition is kind of embedded in the word. It's like how can you make an impact collectively, right? So it kind of is it's the opposite of working in silos. So I believe that all the solutions that we need to solve our problems, we already have within our own communities. We just have
Yeah.
to have the eye to see it. And we have so much talent. We have so much skills and knowledge that's already there.
Mhm.
Being a collective impact strategist is being able to find and identify those people and resources, and then bringing us all together, where we're all working towards one shared goal. And sometimes it can be difficult trying to find one shared goal when you have so many different partners who have different backgrounds and different ambitions. But that's the beauty of it, is that how can you find that one goal where everybody's going to walk away with what they need, for themselves, for their own business, and at the same time, our community is benefiting from it.
Yeah.
So the Inspire Minds model is a collective impact strategy because, Inspire Minds, we're the umbrella, but we're also subcontracting and working with about 5 other organizations, and each of them have a different expertise in something. One of them, Sankofa Community Empowerment, they developed and built out our cultural identity programs, and that's all about Sankofa. It's about understanding your history, so you know how to move forward. So all of our programs have an historic lens to it. Where kids have to understand there's a history to everything. Our communities, it's not an accident that our communities are the way they are. So you have to understand how we got here so you can then create a formula on how to break the cycle, right? So that's in everything from financial literacy workshops that we do, from the history programs that we do, to the civic engagement programs that we do. They have to understand history. Then we also subcontracted an organization called YayYayX, and they're also local in our community, and they built out our civic engagement program. I contracted them. They created a program for us called Civics,
Mhm.
where students are learning how to use the arts and their voice to solve issues in their community. Um, they host their own town halls. They write their own music. They write their own poetry. Uh, they've already raised thousands and thousands of dollars that's currently funding some of our programs right now. I also subcontracted another organization called Oceans and Rivers, and they created our health and wellness programs called Life Goal Labs, where the students learn how to take care of themselves. During the pandemic, there were heightened levels of anxiety and depression, and
Mhm.
even suicide ideation was coming up
Yeah.
a lot from our kids. And
Mhm.
this program gave them the tools on how to manage and navigate through all that. But at the end of the day, all the programs work together to build the leadership skills of our kids. Because you can't lead if you don't know who you are and
Right.
understand your cultural identity. You can't
Right.
lead if you don't take care of yourself and understanding health and wellness. You also can't lead if you don't know how to activate your voice and
Mhm.
understand civic engagement. And also, I Inspire Minds. We host youth conferences. We hire paid interns. We manage after school programs. So
Mhm.
all of us are kind of like bringing our superpowers together, and our kids are having one holistic experience by going through all of our services. So that's what collective impact is. And all of my partners said they felt like they've been able to make a bigger impact while working together versus when they were working in a silo all by themselves.
Yes, yes. Look, she has said a mouthful. Let me welcome the audience here tonight. I guess she's our friend, but if you don't yet know Pastor Charmaine Bird, she's also in Brooklyn. She is definitely a fan of the work that you all are doing. Hey, sis. And let me tell you what Miss Peru just described in terms of collective impact. Oh, if the church would do just that, wouldn't we see our work greatly amplified? But
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show. Let me tell you all how I came to know about Miss Peru and the great work she's doing at Inspiring Minds. She and I don't believe it's just for your subcontractors the way you just explained it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a piece being done on one of your participants, Mr. Arnold Ludd,
Mm-hmm.
last year. Guns up, gloves up, guns down
Yep.
on WPIX Channel 11. And I don't mind giving them their props because, in my opinion, they are one of the best news outlets in New York City. They do the stories that we might miss otherwise, but they did such a great program, a good story on Arnold. And when you came on to be interviewed, you as an adult who sits in the seat as a mentor to an Arnold and many other young people, you just explained how you work with him and the others. but you let him shine. I love that. Can we park there for a minute? Because often as adults, we don't allow young people to just flourish, to just find their place. And if they make mistakes, help them up rather than continuing to beat them down. Can you just tell me about how you develop these relationships that seem to work with your young people, if you don't mind?
Oh, most definitely. Well, first of all, a lot of times with adults, our egos get in the way, and we feel like we have to be in the front of everything, that we have to be on stage all the time. And I have no problem being in the background at all. And I also realize that our students don't have a lot of opportunities to actually like be on stage and to be celebrated and to create their own programs and to come up with their own ideas and to come up with their own solutions and to get the resources to make those solutions happen. That's just something that they don't really have. They don't really get a lot of opportunities to do. Um, and these students, like Arnold, because Arnold wasn't the only program we funded. We ended up paying $18,000 out in grants to high school kids across Brooklyn, and we funded 10 kids, three of them who were highlighted on the news, Arnold being one of them. But a lot of these students, they went through that program cycle that I told you about. Yeah. They went through our health and wellness program. They went through our civic engagement program. They went through our cultural identity program. And by the time they went through it, they were ready. Like they had a lot to say. They felt prepared. They felt supported. And during that time, I got a chance to know all of them really well in a very intimate way because we were all going through the pandemic together. You know, it wasn't just them that were struggling. As adults, we were all struggling too. So when we would be facilitating the program, you know, stuff would come up, you know, especially during our civics artivism program, when they would start writing their poetry and their songs. Like high school kids, they're not always the best when it comes to expressing their emotions, right? So I could ask a student how they're doing, and they say I'm doing just fine. And then they'll come to our poetry program, and that would be a writing prompt. How are you doing? Let's write a poem about it. And then in the poem, they're talking about being depressed, suicidal, all kinds of stuff. But all of a sudden, through the arts, they're able to express in a way that feels a lot more safe. And when they will express those things, it will open up an entry point for the other kids to then start sharing how they're going through the same thing. And we will have it'll feel like a therapy session, you know, but and having these sessions with our students throughout the pandemic, I got to know them really well and build personal relationships with them. And I hired a lot of them to be my interns. So a lot of what you see from Inspiring Minds on our social media, a lot of that is informed by our students or created by our students. And they have ownership in our organization. They feel like they have agency here. So when they get interviewed, I don't tell them what to say, but a lot of times they speak about Inspiring Minds in possessive ways. They say my organization, they say our organization, and it's true because they actually helped to build it. Every single Friday, I meet with a cohort of about 10 high school students, and they let me know what's going on. They tell me what's working with my programs. They tell me what's not working, and I make adjustments accordingly. You know, and when they see that I'm actually listening to them and not just listening, but putting action behind that, it develops and nurtures their trust in myself and the organization. And that's how we were able to build those relationships.
Going through it with them.
Yep, going through it with them. And they are partners. They're not just kids that I'm serving. They're actually thought partners. You know,
love it.
Any other field that you might look at or study, they always study their target market. You know, if Nike wants to sell Nikes to the Black community, they study the Black community. They have focus groups with the Black community so they can know how to market to them. But for some reason in education, we don't always do that. We don't, you know, our job is to serve our students, but our students feel left out of the process. They don't feel included at all. And then people are wondering why schools are not engaged. I mean, why our young people aren't engaged in school, because they don't feel like it reflects who they are. And they're not part of the process.
Right. We're often just creating programs with them in mind, but not having them be a part of it. And so I think you all are onto something a little different at Inspiring Minds. I want to share with the audience that it is a national program. New York City is one of several. How many others are there nationally?
I believe there's about 5 active chapters. And there's an interesting story behind that as well. I used to play basketball at Penn State University.
Okay.
And the guy who originally started Inspiring Minds, he was a football player at Penn State University.
Wow.
And he went to the NFL briefly, and he got injured. And then when he got injured, he went back to his hometown of Warren, Ohio, and created Inspiring Minds as a way to invest back into his community. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, he franchised his model, and the Philadelphia chapter was started. And my teammate from college, who I played in the Final Four with, and we won Big Ten championships together, she runs the Philadelphia chapter. Wow. You know, and then he's always asked me if I would start in New York, but I wasn't too sure if I wanted to leave my last job, and I was kind of like on the fence. But then when I finally decided that I was willing to take that leap, you know, I started to build the New York City chapter. You know, so 3 of the chapters, you know, we have a history of, you know, we went to college together. We were all student athletes, and we kind of used this as a platform to invest back into our communities. So, and what another thing that's really key about our organization is that it's all Black leadership. You know, every chapter is led by a Black leader. And I've been in this field now for 19 years, and I've only worked for white nonprofits that serve Black and brown communities. I've never worked for a nonprofit that had all Black leadership. So that was another thing that kind of like attracted me to the organization. And also, I like the fact that though it's a franchise, it gives you 100% creative power in how you create it for your city, because every city is different. What works in Ohio might not work in Philadelphia, and works in Philadelphia might not work in New York. Right. But as long as we touch on the same 5 core values, which is education, college and career readiness, health and wellness, personal development, and exposure to new opportunities. And all those buckets are very broad. So it's like you can be as creative as you want, as long as you're touching all 5 of those areas. So when you visit the different chapters, the chapters are actually a reflection of the leader who runs it. You know, so Andrea Gardner, who runs Philadelphia, she actually has she's a Delta as well. She's in a sorority. So in her chapter, you see like there's like this Greek type feel to it, where all the kids have like their own jackets with the letters on it, and they have their cotillions, and they got their steps. And you know, with me, I'm very passionate about culture and leadership. So in my model, you see a lot more of African-centered learning, you know, going on in everything that we do. But since I don't have any regrets, it was scary leaving my last job because I was an executive there. I was actually the only person of color in leadership, and we were serving all Black children. And this organization received millions and millions of dollars a year to make decisions on the programs that Black kids are going to get. And when I was in the boardroom, I often did not agree with the decisions that they were making about our kids and our communities, but I was also outvoted. And after a while, that became very disheartening, right? Sure. Absolutely. And it even came to the point where my CEO said, Katrena, you got to choose a side. You're either with us or you're with them. Wow. And I was like, why I got to choose sides? We all work for the same organization. And he's like, yeah, that's how it should be, but that's not how it is. So for me, that was a crossroads. Are you going to sell out or not? Choosing the side means there's a lot of Black people who make it that high and they choose the white side. And that's when, and not really look out for the Black people. And I couldn't do that. And that's when I made the decision that I was going to walk away from it all and join Inspiring Minds, because I believe that our community should have institutions that are created and led by the people from the community. We should be making and be positioned to make decisions about the kind of programs and services that our kids are receiving. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And it's so normalized that I don't even think that we talk about it enough. I don't even think we realize how much decision power we don't have as it relates to how our kids are being educated and the services that are coming into our communities.
Listen, Black Talk platform folks on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. Listen, she was delayed for this moment. Okay. She was delayed in coming on Black Talk platform for this moment. If anyone follows me over on Twitter, I made a post. I don't want you all to miss what she just said. Sometimes we are the only ones who look like us in high positions, but we're either selling out when we're given that ultimatum like she was given, and we forget about the reason why we went there, why we were put there, who expected us to be there, who put us there. Other people who look just like us, typically. And I know, and she didn't mention, you haven't mentioned this, Miss Perou, yet, but I'm pretty sure that she was torn between not wanting to die and not have her own dream of helping her own people and leaving those babies in the hands of those who were not culturally sensitive, who didn't really think about what was best for these young people, and who didn't include them as partners as she and the other leaders of Inspiring Minds does. Let me tell you, you have just given me like life in terms of symmetry and synergy. Let me tell you, I'm looking at Malcolm X over your shoulder. He got it. And it's clear to me that you have also gotten it. And so I don't have on a hat, but I would tip it to you just based on what you just said. If I had a hat, I'm so, and Pastor Bird is over here lighting up the comments because it is indeed so inspiring hearing you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I thank
And
you.
And I also want to add that, I don't have regrets being in that space because as an executive there, I learned how the business side works. I learned how they got their money. I learned how to write proposals to get grants because before that time, I was working more in the programs. And I understand programs very well, but I didn't understand how they got the money to run the programs. But then when I became an executive, they kind of forced me to start writing proposals. And I was like, I don't know how to write proposals. They're like, look, you got to help out. And I'm happy that they made me do that because that's now a skill set that I can bring with me with Inspiring Minds. Like a lot of the funding that I got was because I learned how to write proposals when I was an executive there. And not only did I learn how to write proposals, I built a lot of relationships with other funders, with foundations. And some of those foundations are funding me right now with Inspiring Minds. So I feel like God put me there for a reason because He knew I needed to learn how the institution works so I can then bring it back to my community, build Inspiring Minds, but also impart that same knowledge to the other local Black-owned businesses there. Because I've learned over the past few years that many of the Black leaders from the community don't understand the business side, or they're marginalized from all the funding opportunities that are out there. Yeah. And I didn't even realize how marginalized that we were until I left. When I tried to do it as a Black-owned organization, I didn't have the same opportunities that I had when I was working for white people. Sure. All of a sudden, the door was closed. That was one that I saw that was so easily opened when I was working when I was working under a white umbrella. So that's been all part of the learning process for me. And being on my own is just trying to fundraise and to sustain what we're doing. And what really helped is when the pandemic started. 2019, I went through a full year of the first grant I got for $250K, and that's what got us started. And then
I heard that she got $250,000 to get her started. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, to get started. And part of that was being part of a network. This is why it's important to not try to do things on your own.
In a silo.
Because I was a part of a network of Inspiring Minds. Derek, who runs Ohio, had a contact in North Carolina who was the chief program officer of a foundation out there. And he didn't fund programs in Ohio, but he funded programs in New York. So Derek, the founder of Ohio, he said, Trina, I have a funder for you. And I'm going to send them your way. All you got to do is write the proposal. So I wrote the proposal and I got $250K to start. And most nonprofits don't get that to start. I got that because I opened up my network and we're doing it together. And then when I got to $250K, I was able to subcontract 3 or 4 other Black-owned organizations within the community. And now we're all working together. But then for almost all of 2019, I wrote about 19 proposals that all got denied funding straight. So 2019 was tough, and I was even about to quit. Cause I was like, I never heard no so many times in my life. I'm not used to that. I'm used to when I put my heart and soul in something, I'm used to getting the results that I'm looking for. And for the first time in my life, it was like back to back, no. And I remember after getting one no, I was driving to Brooklyn, and I just started crying in the car. I was crying like, I can't do it. I don't think I can. I have what it takes to sustain what we're doing, and maybe this is God's sign to telling me that I'm on the wrong track. If I hear no so many times, maybe I just need to. Maybe that's a sign. And I remember walking into the school at Boys and Girls High School in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and I was trying to hold it together and keep myself composed. And I could see that on the program side, there was results. I could see the transformation in our students, and I could see that we were having an impact. but I just didn't know how I was going to fund it. And I saw one of my colleagues, Lindsay, she's also one of my best friends, and she asked me how I was doing, and I was trying to stay composed, and then the tears just started falling out of my eyes, like I couldn't keep it in. And I'm usually pretty good at keeping a poker face, but I couldn't even do it that day. And I remember just crying on her shoulder, like I don't think I can pay for this anymore. Like it's going to run out. And then a woman from the Robin Hood Foundation came to the school and she saw our work, and she didn't really have the power to fund me, but she came and she was just like, wow, what you're doing here is amazing. And you're probably having a hard time getting funding. And I was like, yeah, how can you tell? She said, because of the stuff you guys are talking about. You guys are talking about systemic oppression, systemic racism. You're talking about oppression. You're talking about social justice. And a lot of funders are afraid to touch that because it's risky, right? She said, even if you're having a hard time getting funding, don't change what you're doing because our kids in our community need this. And eventually you'll get a breakthrough. And I'm happy that she told me that because I was having a rough time with that. And then the pandemic happened, and the silver lining for the pandemic and George Floyd happening was that then all of a sudden people wanted to fund nonprofits led by Black people.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone wanted to fund social justice organizations who are addressing social justice. All this stuff we were already doing, and we just had to keep doing what we were already doing. And then just like that, I started to get grants and I started to get more funding, and the stream started to open. And during the pandemic, when most organizations and even schools had a hard time engaging young people, they were coming to us. We were having 40 kids on average signing in to go through our programs. And I documented them and made little videos, put them on social media and on Twitter. And the principal saw it and the superintendent saw it. And then that kind of opened up more doors for us to get more contracts. So I'm happy to say that we're in a position now where we're financially okay. I just found out today that we got 2 big grants for $200,000 each from 21st Century Schools. Okay. I found that out about an hour ago.
That is awesome.
So if anything, I hope this story encourages people who are listening to just keep going. There's something about being persistent in your dreams. There's always going to be roadblocks. Things aren't always going to work right away. But I just believe that if you keep at it, eventually, you'll get a breakthrough. And I'm a testament to that. So I just wanted to share that testimony.
Look, you can keep sharing your testimony because it truly is inspiring. And I don't know if the audience realized that the national founder of Inspiring Minds, and Miss Perou were both, and her friend from the chapter in Philadelphia, they were all student athletes while they were in college. But Inspiring Minds does not focus on athletics. It's not, I don't think that is prohibited, but that is not their focus. They are trying to ensure that these young people are well-rounded and able to take the reins of leadership themselves sooner than later. Does athletics have a part to play in your programming?
You actually hit the nail on the head. It's like right as of right now, I'm not doing anything that has to do with athletics. But I do in time plan to start to include that when the time is right. Yeah. I don't even know what that looks like yet. But one of the things that I do want to do is to be able to work with schools, with the athletes and the teams that they already have. I want to work with the basketball team and the football teams and the soccer teams at Boys and Girls High School and the Thomas Jefferson campus where I'm at right now and all the other schools. But I wanted to develop the leadership skills in those athletes because I feel like we don't leverage the leadership skills of our athletes enough because they have a lot of social power.
Yes, absolutely.
You think about an OJ versus a Muhammad Ali, right?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of times once athletes make it to a certain level, they treat us as if we're different than all the other Black people. Mm-hmm. Even when I was at Penn State, we didn't live with all the other Black people. It was like we lived in a certain quarters, and even when there was racial unrest at Penn State while I was there was this whole racial thing going on at CNN. They made us feel like that doesn't you're not a part of that because you're different. You're an athlete. Mm-hmm. And I remember the Black Caucus leading protest, and no athletes were a part of it because we were so separate from what the other Black students were going from. But I think that it's important for Black athletes to use their social power to support whatever is going on in their communities, because we have a lot of, as athletes, we have a lot of power. Imagine if all the NBA players and the NFL players decided that they wanted to get involved in social justice issues, how much further along, we could be with moving the needle, in our communities.
Yeah.
So I really want to start planting those seeds in athletes on, like, yeah, you play basketball, yeah, you play football, but how are you using your power to actually solve issues in your community as well? And there was a guy named Brian Favors who was my advisor at Penn State University, and he started a program called the Bigger Picture for Black athletes, to teach us that very skill. How do we use our platforms to give back to our communities? And that was 22, 23 years ago. And Brian Favors lives in New York right now. He and I work together. He runs all my cultural identity programs. So he always shares with everyone how he planted a seed in me 25 years ago, and now I sign his checks. Right?
I love it.
And same thing with me. I'm trying to plant those same seeds with all the kids that I'm working with, and maybe one day I'll be working for them. That's my dream.
But there's a humility about you that for me is evident. And I believe that it just has to be a part of your success. Even at the point at which you are ready to give up, you were able to see the evidence of the great work you were doing, even though it lacked monetary support from the young people in the school. You heard those leaders in the school tell you that you're doing well, and the Robin Hood people, who we all know are a behemoth in terms of funding projects and the like. But then God allowed for the pandemic. That's what I say. God allowed for the pandemic, and you started to really reap harvest. And yes, we had a lot of funding, not me, Pastor Bird, not the stuff that I do up here, but I'm so happy hearing your testimony and sharing. And that's how I sort of set the program up tonight. I wanted people to hear, if you're not in New York City, because New York City is a major city in the world, you probably have heard about the high level of crime that we are currently experiencing here. And we need many more programs like Inspiring Minds. And so that's why I sort of set this show up tonight, to hear from Miss Perou, to compliment her on her great work and the work of those who now we understand are her subcontracting partners in this great work. But we need to help our young people remain alive. We need to do things that will restore hope in them for them to go on. Don't miss the fact that our young people, like us as adults, have experienced incredible emotional trauma as a result of being isolated for nearly 2 years from their friends. And this program was there during the George Floyd murder and all of the aftermath that came as a result of that. Listen, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Miss Perou, but I believe that people can sit in their living rooms and begin to invite young people, even if they don't want them in their homes, because you want to have some segregation of space. But we have so much open space. People don't believe it, but there are parks on parks on parks. There are libraries. We can get small groups of young people together and begin implementing just small portions of what you're talking about tonight. And I believe what's key, and I had asked Ms. Perou to talk about her Saturday program, which is the Sankofa program, I believe. If I'm wrong, just correct me. When I did my doctoral dissertation, I had 3 areas that I wanted to ensure young people, children of the formerly incarcerated, would be able to lean into for themselves. And that is academic success, that is cultural identity, and spiritual awareness. And that's going to be different for everyone. And so even though the model that I created was Christ-centered, I understood that all of our young people, specifically Black and Latino young people, would not have that same vantage point as I do, but I would never reject them or turn them away from the services that they needed desperately. Because when you are a child of the formerly incarcerated or the currently incarcerated, you actually lose your identity because you've missed a part of your ability to matriculate along the way with both parents or either parent. And so that really, when I looked on your website, and when I follow her on Instagram, everyone, Miss Perou, would you please put your Instagram up there, because I don't want to put the wrong thing in the chat, and then I will put it on the stream here. They are constantly posting about the Sankofa program as well as everything else that they do. Can you tell us how that has impacted young people? How has it given them aha moments and whatever else they've experienced?
Oh yeah, so the program is called Sankofa Saturdays, and just to give some context, if you guys been paying attention to the news, there's been all these debates surrounding critical race theory, right? Where there's a national movement that's going on right now, where they're trying to ban teaching the truth about our history in schools, and more recently they've been banning books that tell our story as well. Yep. And these books are like innocent books about Rosa Parks or anything that kind of reflects our history and our greatness. They're trying to ban from schools, and
Miss Perou and I were both experiencing some connectivity issues, only because I think there's a storm brewing here, and I think we're having some problems. I see that Pastor Bird is also having problems. Miss Perou, can you say something? Yeah, we still can't hear her. Bear with her, because I want to hear what her position was about this whole critical race theory. But when she went out, she'll be back in. Listen, Pastor Bird, just like you, and welcome Deacon Sandra and all others who are here. I'm so enjoying this show. I'll have to ask her about a part 2, Pastor Bird.
Here I am.
Ask her about that. There you are. Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can continue.
I got disconnected somehow. But one thing that I learned is that our students aren't really that connected to current events. They don't even know that this conversation is even happening, because the news isn't really speaking a language that they can really understand. Yeah. So part of our responsibility is to bring these social issues to our students and break it down in a way where they can understand it, and understand it in a way of knowing how it impacts them. Yeah. And from these critical race theory debates and them seeing news clips about it came the More Than a Theory campaign. They started a campaign called More Than a Theory because you don't hear or see any young people hear any young people's opinions as it relates to the education that they're receiving. Right. So if you were to search the hashtag More Than a Theory on Instagram, you'll be able to see all their promo videos, the songs they wrote, the poetry that they wrote. And they hosted a town hall, the More Than a Theory town hall, which was virtual. And out of that campaign, we ended up raising about $26,000. And those funds is what's currently funding our Sankofa Saturday program. Yes. And the Sankofa Saturday program is a way for us to teach our kids and educate them, from our perspective. So as there's already 9 states that passed legislation banning teaching the truth about our history in schools, and there's over 20 more states that are in line to do the same thing. But Sankofa Saturdays, we control that. We're paying for it. It's not under the umbrella of the system, and every Saturday from 11 to 1, we have students who sign in from all over the country. They sign in from Brooklyn, they sign in from Atlanta, they sign in from Detroit, they sign in from California. It's for 5th grade all the way up to 12th grade. And the first hour is they learn their history, starting with ancient Africa, not starting with slavery. Most of us in school learned about ourselves as like slaves. When I was in school, we didn't learn anything before slavery. So I thought my history started off as a slave, not understanding that there's thousands and thousands of years of our history before that time that is empowering, that's uplifting. So in Sankofa Saturdays, we teach that to our students for the first hour, starting with ancient Africa, through the Middle Passage, all the way up into the liberation movement, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, to where we're at today. They have to really understand our story from beginning, middle, to end. Um, and then the second hour is more about practical skills. So for the second hour, our students learn financial literacy, they learn civic engagement, they learn health and wellness, because we don't want them to just understand their history. They need to also understand, all those things. So all the things that I wish that I learned in school that I didn't learn until I was 35, they're getting right now. And we tell that to our kids all the time. It's like, you guys are going to be better than us because you're learning at 15, 16, 17. Well, we didn't learn until 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, just a few weeks ago, they learned about real estate. I didn't learn about how to buy a house until I was 27.
Wow.
So our goal is to make sure that they're better than us, and that, and I always tell them this all the time. If we had all the answers, you guys wouldn't be going through the struggles that you're going through right now.
That's
so
right.
We don't have it all figured out.
Right.
Right. But we want to pass the torch to you so you guys can make a better society for your children, and your children's children.
Yes.
So that's Sankofa Saturdays. If anyone's interested, you can follow us on the IG and click on the link in our bio. I was trying to figure out how to write it in the chat, and I don't know how to use the chat from my phone. But
I'll try to do it. Just give it to me, and I'll do it here.
Okay. Our Instagram is Inspiring Minds-NYC. And if you click the link in our bio, you will be able to find an application to our Sankofa Saturday program, and it's open to anyone. So if you have children or nieces or nephews or grandchildren or anybody who has children, you can pass that link along to them, and they can just click in and join us on Zoom on Saturdays.
That's major, everyone. That is major. They're opening this up. It's a national opportunity, though it's housed here in the Brooklyn location. Look, Zoom has been phenomenal at connecting us throughout the world, even. Mm-hmm. But this opportunity is free. It's free. Am I correct?
It's free because we raised the money for it.
They already raised the money for it. Look, the heavy lift, that's the fundraising, has been done. Now it is just to come and get the information. 2 hours. 2 hours. Is it 2 hours?
Yes, 2 hours.
Okay. 2 hours on a Saturday, doing something productive and building yourself up and learning about the possibilities for creating your own wealth from 5th grade to 12th grade is, like she said, and I am not in her age group, this was not an opportunity that we often had, and she's ensuring, and her partners are ensuring, that these young people have this opportunity. Please take advantage of it. Please take advantage of it. I wanted to share with you.
And hold on, before you continue, I just want to add that parents are welcome to attend as well. Because we do have parents who sign in, because a lot of the stuff that our children are learning, their parents don't know yet. They didn't really learn a lot about their history before slavery. Some of the financial literacy stuff that we're teaching, our parents don't know anything about. Or, it's a multi-generational space. So if you want to come and just observe or learn yourself, you're welcome to come too.
Oh, now that's even more major, because she's inviting the whole village. She's inviting the family. This is free. They've already raised the money for it, she said, and that was through their More Than a Theory project. So listen, they are doing fabulous work. There's no need for any of us to go without, because they're making it available to us without us having to leave our homes. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to do anything. It's within the safety of your home. Check them out. Is here. Now, I wanted to, as we begin to wind down, I could actually listen to you and all of your plans and all of the things that you are doing for a much longer time than an hour. But to respect both your time and mine, I have to bring up what Pastor Bird put in the thing in the chat earlier. Will there be a part 2? What I would love for you to consider, and so of course we're connected, and you can let me know. Because I believe you're going to be a demonstration project in and of yourself, right here in Brooklyn. While nationally, all of the 5 chapters are doing quite well, you are just the epitome for me of inspiring minds. And so how can we make this more than a moment here on this show, where we're encouraging people to start thinking deeper and to replicate in some small manner in their own communities. You heard her say she was about ready to quit because she left a very lucrative job as an executive at a leading not-for-profit to do and follow her heart to serve our people, our young people. I wish I could give you some actual flowers for the great work that you're doing.
Thank
How
you.
can we do this in a more tangible way where people can come with their past, because 1 hour or 45 minutes is just not enough? We need blueprints. I'm not saying I need a blueprint, but there are people out there that we want to duplicate what you are doing in some small way according to what their community's needs are. How can we consider doing this again on a grander scale, not a live interview, but like a Zoom, a Zoom, where we can invite people? And if you say that there has to be an entrance or fee to go back into your work in Inspiring Minds, just let me know, because I think this is so critically important that we begin to build and not reinvent the wheel. Sometimes talk to me a little bit about that and your interest, perhaps.
As far as like me being able to present to others how I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yes. And what maybe some very basic steps to get them started. Everybody's not a creative now. You have to know that, right? So everybody's not like you. And that doesn't mean that they're not special like you. It's just that people really need guidance to do really good stuff that they may have a desire to do.
Okay, so first, I am launching another organization called The Table in August of 2022. And this
Okay.
is going to be a networking space for Black organizations to learn exactly what I'm doing. And it's an opportunity. We will barter services, but also you have a chance to even be a part of our model. Like if you have a program or something you want to pilot, it's something I could bring into a school, and maybe it's some, there's going to be a whole process for that. So right now I'm doing that with my students. Like Arnold's one of them. We're funding our students. We funded $18,000 worth of funds to 10 students, and their programs were all piloted through our organization last summer. And we had 10. My entire summer was led by kids who ran their own programs, and 3 of those programs got more funding, got more school contracts. So you mentioned Arnold earlier.
Yeah.
I was just with Arnold all day today because his program is about to start in 3 schools, starting the end of April. So he got even more funding, right? So
that's great.
If you're an organization and you have a program idea, you can be a part of the table, and I will help you to be able to flesh that out and to actually pilot that idea, through my organization at a school. Because it's very, very difficult to get into a school a lot of times. Like you have to know somebody. I actually have relationships with superintendents and a lot of principals where if I bring you into my model, it can give you a chance to pilot that idea, get some data, and then over a period of time, be able to run it on your own without me. Also, another method, and I share this with my students and all my friends, is that I ask people, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And they give me one answer. And then I ask them, if failure didn't exist, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then they give me a different answer, And I'm like, well, why did your answer change? The second answer that they give me is their real answer. That's what they really want to do. But we don't always realize how our fear of failure keeps us from being able to think big or to even dream about what you really want to do, because we think it's not going to work. Right. But once I remove that veil and that of fear, all of a sudden the reality of what they really want to do, emerges. Yes. So I challenge all of you to kind of like ask yourself that question. Like, if I knew that anything I would do would work, what would I do? And then that's what you should go for. And a lot of times people are afraid to go for that. Like, well, I don't have any resources, or I don't know anybody, or I don't have this, we think about all the things that we don't have.
Right.
But I really do believe in that mantra that everything that you need, you already have, and everything that you have, you already need. So all your resources are one call away, one Google search away. When I started Inspire Minds, I started off with a meeting with all the people I wanted to meet with. And then from there, more clarity came. It's kind of like dominoes. Yeah. You might not be able to see steps A to Z right away, but we can always see at least A first. Do A, and after you do A, you get clarity on B. And after you do B, you get clarity on C and D. And then before you know it, you got the whole alphabet done. But it's like one step at a time, and that actually takes faith. That takes it's a spiritual journey. I would say it that way, because it takes faith to act on something when you don't see how it's all going to roll out all the time.
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
and part of my process was very spiritual. I kind of like when that story about Exodus when the Hebrews are going through the wilderness
Mm,
and God gave manna from heaven every single day, and they just had to trust that every day they're going to be provided for.
right.
Um, and during the pandemic, it was hard to plan long term. It was hard to plan a month from now. It's hard to plan for next year because the rules keep changing. The game
Yeah.
keeps changing every week.
Yeah.
But I was always clear on what I could do today and what I could do tomorrow. And each day, when I tackle things in front of me, I get the resources and the people that I need to make things happen. Um, but I could do a part two where I kind of gave a more conceptual
Yeah.
um, explanation of how I do things, but I can actually break down the nuts and bolts in another call if you want me to. If you want me to, I'm more than
I,
happy to share that.
she said, if I want her to, absolutely. I would love the way I envision it after hearing what your next phase is to put a feeler out there. First of all, I will be replaying this for the rest of the week. Is that important? The information that you shared. Um, I will put fillers out to those from whomever who would be interested. And then for those who might be interested in becoming a part of your table pilot program, so they can get some hands on. And that will probably be people who are more local, but I will put it out there because I really think that we're at a critical inflection point for saving our communities, restoring our communities, and lifting up the young people within our communities. And it is people like you, Miss Perou. It is people like you and the founder and the other executive directors who are making such an impact in our young people's lives. 40 children in the summer when they want to do other things often, but they choose to be with you and those who partner with you to offer these programs because they really see the information that you all are sharing is a way out of whatever their situations are, the challenges they face at home, in school, in their communities, and you're doing the work and you have the receipts. And I'm just so inspired by you and your great work. And absolutely, I will follow up, see if we can do a Zoom. I really appreciate you and your time tonight. I am just so inspired. I'm so inspired. Would you like to end us with any other comments, any need that you might have that we can provide for you and Inspiring Minds NYC?
Well, yeah. So I would love for you guys to follow our work on Twitter,
Oh, Twitter. Give me your Twitter.
Inst- Instagram, or Facebook at Inspire Minds NYC. We are a nonprofit, so we welcome any donations that you may have to support our work. Again, as a Black nonprofit, it's hard to fundraise because the odds are stacked against us. So any contribution you can make would be appreciated. And donating can happen on our website at www.imuth.org, or you can Cash App Inspiring Minds NYC. And also we're having another Shark Tank on May 26th, where we're going to be funding more students to come up with programs to run over the summer, and we invite you all. So if you follow us on social media, we'll be posting more details on when and where that's going to be happening. If you want to be a part of that. We also welcome you to join Sankofa Saturdays. If you felt inspired by anything I said today and you want to be a part of our community, you can actually build with us every single Saturday. So I want to end on this note, that they say it takes a village to raise a child, right? And why I started to do this work is because I saw that our village was siloed, and sometimes stressed out and overworked and under-resourced, So Inspiring Minds is an infrastructure that brings our village together with our youth at the center, so that like Dr. Deb said, that we can make sure that we are saving our communities, because we are in a state of an emergency. Our kids need us, our youth need us, and we have to come together, in order to make that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I missed the Cash App. Please give it to me again and I will put it in all the replays.
Oh, it's Inspiring Minds NYC.
Okay. Inspiring. Pretty easy because that's it across the board.
Yep.
All right. We want to support the great work that Miss Perou and her team are doing at Inspiring Minds NYC. She has made the case without doing a full court press. She's just telling us what we already know. And we know, those of us who do the work, that it has to have resources in order for that work to continue. I would love it if everyone who is listening would commit to sending them $25 via the Cash App. Look, if you're worried about Cash App, you don't have to worry about it anymore because they're tracking everything we do now. So this is a legitimate organization. You've already heard that she just received word that they received two separate $200,000 donate grants today. So they're not trying to run off with your donation, but they absolutely need the donations from all of us in order to continue to do the great work. They're getting ready to have another Shark Tank. I hope I got the date right, May 26th. This is a program that helps fund young people in their student-led, youth-led projects that will uplift the rest of the community, but in particular, their young people. Please support the great work that she's doing. I really can't say it any better than that. If you could please think in terms of giving a donation of at least $25 for them to continue this great work, you will be so happy to see the results of what they do. And as she said, it is her faith that has kept her doing this work, and it is her faith that leads her to continue. Miss Perou, you have been an absolute blessing to me. And I know you've been a blessing to all those who have tuned in tonight and who will continue to tune in all week, because I'm going to make sure it is the only thing that I'm blowing up on all of my social media. I appreciate you so much. And I look forward to physically meeting you one day in the near future.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can you wait a minute while I say goodnight to everyone, and I'll see you in the green room? Black Talk Platform, thank you all so much for being here yet again. There are so many things going on tonight, especially over in Twitter Spaces, and I'm going to be running over there soon. My brother Andy King is doing a show at 8:30. I'm going to join him for a few minutes. Look, we have to support everybody. We just have to support all the good work, okay? So let's try to do that. But Miss Perou has been a blessing. She's inspired us all tonight. I really need for everyone to donate. And if you don't have the 25, don't say, oh, she said if you don't give 20. No. Whatever you have, they will accept. But I really want you all to show her and her team appreciation for the great work that they're doing. Now, I know last week I said that the phenomenal Denise Hart would be here today. She had to change it because she is doing something incredible. She is a former actor on The Wire. She is a tenured professor at Howard University, and she learned how to pivot like many of us did during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. And she became a design professional. And because April is both Black Women's History Month and Design Professionals Month, I thought no better person could represent all of that than Denise Hart. She'll be here with me next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Come through. Now, Miss Perou, you all are teaching young people about real estate. We're all catching the real estate bug. Well, guess what? I'm not seeing saturating these real estate streets are design professionals. Do you know when you purchase and you do flips, fix and flips, or you are just becoming a wholesaler, you need to stage those homes. Well, Miss Denise is going to show you how she got into it, how her passion developed around it. And I want you all to tune in, because that's a whole nother field of specialization that we can all think about if we have that. I don't know. I'll probably just watch Denise. But for some of you, that may be your calling. You don't want to miss this show next week. Come through, and we'll see you next week on Black Talk Platform. Good night, everyone.
Good night.